right. But yeah. So when you email me, I'm gonna email you some stuff.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna email you some stuff. I get you these materials, a lot of books to read and shit like that.
All right.
But the first book I'm gonna give you that you start with, since you know, like you're working to get the reading in, right? One of the books I gave out that's the first book is As a Man Thinketh, right?
I got that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Read that over again.
Okay.
With the mentality of saying that I'm the true and living God, it's going to have a different resonance. You know what I mean? And of course, there's the major ones, Message to the Black Man. You got to read that.
I got that.
You know what I mean?
I haven't read it. I got it, though. For sure.
Right, right. These are ones that you got to read and stuff like that. And I'll still share it anyway, so you can have it digitally.
Okay.
You know? Again, this way you can share it with somebody else if they ever want it. You ain't got to give up your physical copy.
Right.
You know? You never wouldn't do that. You know? But I'm gonna be on here till like just 8 o'clock today, so I'm gonna go through just these ideas here. Okay, should be still going, but two ideas I want to cover before we get done here, and they'll be useful for you too. As we hear, the Word is Bond Plus lesson. I started to send them out to everybody. If you want the Word is Bond Plus lesson, just email me. Okay. And that's you. You know, you remind me because you're gonna email me too. And then we can get into that. I'm still working on the Writer Plus lesson. If you just want to write, what would be the things? And it's designed to make you a writer, but it doesn't mean that everybody wants to write. You know what I'm saying? But it's good to know these things. Like, yo, if I do want to write, or if I want to write something of value, how is it? You know what I'm saying? You should know these things, how to get into the field, because when I designed a class course here, Political Education and Civilization Enrichment, God, they brought me here to the school. They, son, we were writers. We're writers, you know what I mean? We met in college, but we was at different magazines. You know what I'm saying? I was at Vibe and he was at Beatdown. I don't know if you ever heard of that. That's an old one. That's an old one. They don't exist no more. Beatdown. Like old ones like Stress Magazine and shit like that. No, these are old magazines, but they was real gritty. You know what I mean? Like Stress Magazine Phil was a graffiti writer that set that one up. You know what I mean? And it was just a real gritty look. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them I was in. Hook.com. People don't know about these. You know what I mean? And along with all the other ones, Source 5, XXL, all those. I was in all those. Hip Hop DX, all of those. You know? But
that was my favorite website one time. All the new releases.
Yeah. Yeah. They was okay until they didn't want to let me write about certain people. But yeah, what really stopped is that they started to charge real low. All these magazines. You say, "What's a review?" And they'll say, "Oh, I'll give you $20." I'm not doing no review for no $20 though. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like you want me to write like 200 words or something for like $200? You know what I mean? I was like, practice? Like, yo, AI. I was like, this is not a game. Like, that's not what we doing for that. But you know, in the subject, two things I want to cover. I'm not going to go through a plus lesson today. I want to talk about introductory pedagogy, right? How do we teach when we introduce something? You know what I'm saying? When we're introducing people to something, you know, we're introducing, right? In that knowledge build degree, we teach he who is savage, civilization, righteousness, knowledge of himself. You know what I'm saying? I'm making notes on all of 120. I want to see if I built in this so much. I know I had notes in here about that. See, they got deleted too when I moved phones here. Now I gotta get it from a different place. So I just go off the top here with the build. When you teach somebody, right? People always try to teach them what they want to teach them. You know, you came here for a specific reason though, so I kind of already know what you want to learn, and then I'm still asking you questions about what more you would like to know. Right. It always counts with people. When we talk about teaching, people think about being a poor righteous teacher, which is what we are. But in the daily context of it and how it moves, think of it more like sharing, but sharing insights and ideas and the nature of man who is man is God. So that's what you're doing. You're just sharing the nature. You don't think of teaching like, oh, I gotta teach him, I gotta teach. Because yo, when I got knowledge, I was around legends every day. You know what I mean? And this is why I'm able to teach it because I was around them every day. Like every day was like, I tell people like, yo, when I was coming here, once they, especially when they was like, yo, students, we want you to teach here. Every day, peace. Every day was like a different episode with a different elder. So we might walk around, we might hang out here for hours, or we might walk around. Or we might like, yo, I'm going up to P.E.A.C.E, Bronx, and we do something. So okay, we're going up there. They're different adventures, guy. You know what I'm saying? And the pedagogy, the science of teaching begins with civilization. It's all in that degree. What are you gonna share? What are you gonna share as far as opening up to where they actually are? You see, you can't teach anyone unless they know where they exactly are. This is why, like, when I got knowledge was in Born, and that happened to be when the Matrix came out. And I remember all the guys, they was always building on the Matrix. You know, they didn't have the knowledge though, so they get the red pill. They choose the knowledge though. They can stay ignorant, stay with the blue, right? It really was like that. You're ignorant, and while you're ignorant, you're being blood sucked by them.
Would that be considered
Remember
85?
that the 85 are being blood sucked. They're
Okay.
being used, but they're ignorant to it. Remember, because you don't know that you're in the Matrix. You don't know you're in the machine.
Right.
So they was using this metaphor to like all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it was like the most relevant movie. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because when I got knowledge, I didn't see the movie yet. You know what I mean?
Once you saw it.
Once I saw it, I was
play
like,
it back,
oh, that's what they talking about here. You know what I mean? And it's a great movie, the first one especially.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The first one's a great movie. You know what I mean? But the thing is, though, is that the first thing that has to be shared with someone is a realization of where they are. So that's why, like, when I say when you share as a 5%er, the first thing that you're doing, though, is just simply sharing your nature. In other words, I propose through my experience of understanding, right, that most people, the first sharing is just simply seeing God moving righteously. They haven't seen that shit. They haven't seen it, you know, and it sounds crazy. They haven't seen upstanding men. They don't see that on a regular basis. You'll notice that. You'll be in places you don't see upstanding men. Like, listen, you're about to get on a bus, let the women pass. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Oh, listen, you want to take a seat? You know what I'm saying? You give up a seat. You know what I'm saying? Right? These kind of things are things that they're little, they're thing that regular people do, but if people don't see that, right, then they're not going to see anything else.
Right.
You know what I mean? And also, too, it gives you practice, though, because some of us got so guarded, though, that we won't even do stuff like that anymore. No, we have to be outside. We have to be aware of people.
Especially when COVID.
Right, we have to engage them. You know, we have to engage them in some kind of way. And I'm saying that as a person that is like, I'll be reading or writing something on my phone all the time. And I'm trying my best, though, to always try to engage when I'm with people. You know what I'm saying? So the thing is, they need to see a righteous man. That's something that they don't see. It's the same as exposing civilization. You take your moments to expose, like, yo, this is not really this. It's not really that. This is not really the foundation of that. You know? Like, listen, I mentioned like the division between people. Like, you see a lot of brothers be like, oh, I'm FBA and the hell with everybody else. Or like, you know, we're seeing people is getting all about Gaza now, right? But when the election cycle came, right, it was Biden, it was Kamala or Trump. The Gaza issue wasn't even on the table. Both of them was about, we're going to destroy Gaza. We're going to help Israel do whatever it wants. In other words, they had the whole country not giving a fuck about the humanity of other people. Even though the devilishment that they do there easily channels back here. Easily channels through the rest of the world. People don't understand that. You know what's crazy? I'm going to give you an example here. Like that stretch here. The same thing that you see in Gaza, which is something that's been happening since the 40s when they made that. But that kind of actions of taking over was nearly the entire century of Latin America. Massive genocide. The Guatemalans had genocides where the U.S. funded their troops and they would just slaughter all of the indigenous. And you say, wait, but those are all like, they're all brown. No, all the indigenous that are still living in tribes in that area, if you crossed over and said, I'm a Latino, they call them Latinos, and they give up and they live a city life, you know what I'm saying? All right, you're okay. They kill everybody there. The torture, the explanation, the details of how they torture. People think it's just like, waterboarding. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
What's that?
Waterboarding is where they cover your face and then they just pour water on you.
Oh, okay.
The body reacts as if it's drowning.
Mhm.
The body cannot
Mhm.
figure the difference. You know what I mean? That was a big deal, especially during the Obama administration. You know what I mean? Because it came out that they were doing that, and Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, they exposed all these things. They're legendary journalists, though, but because they exposed the truth, right? But all the torture. There's a book Naomi Klein wrote it called Shock Doctrine. She called it the Shock Doctrine, right? And she talked about nations all over the world that the U.S. took part in oppressing and either countering the revolutions and the massive amounts of torture and oppression that were put on those countries. You know what I mean? We're talking about, heinous shit, like anything you can make up that's disgusting. You know what I mean? We're talking about having people electrocuted regularly, lobotomies, you know what I mean? All types of things, just experimenting on the body, you know what I mean? And just crazy stuff. During the time, there's a famous UN Nobel Peace Prize, Rigoberta Menchú. She was an indigenous woman out of Guatemala, right? And she wrote an autobiography. They tortured her mom, her mother, because they did activism for other tribes and taught the other tribes. Her mother was tortured in such a way where they just would slowly peel off her skin, cut body parts off. You know what I'm saying? Just take the skin right off, cut ears off. You know what I mean? They would peel layers of the skin to the point where he looked almost half dead, half alive. When they're at their point where they're dead, revive them and then continue again. You know what I'm saying? Continue again. And then as a thing, they round up all the tribes, including the family, and then they burn them all alive. You can't do anything. They just shoot you. They got guns, everything. And to show you, like, you don't want to do this. And they burn you alive. And you can't bury them. They stay there until. This is the kind of torture that was regular among the indigenous throughout the Americas. You know what I'm saying? Now, if that's happening throughout the old Americas, U.S. fueled, where are they going to go? See, you don't see that in Gaza because they bordered Gaza and they don't let you out. But if you were able to escape, where would you go? You would go to some westernized country. In this case, the U.S. It's the easiest place to go. You see what I'm saying? So all the people that is going like, oh, look, they're taking our jobs, they're taking on this stuff, but the migration is a result of that.
Right.
Mass migration out of Puerto Rico, where I'm from, came about because they colonized America.
Right.
They took over all the land, industrialized it, and literally traded thousands of jobs for the few hundred that the industry did. You know, and Puerto Rico, by the way, is where most of the biopharmaceuticals are made. That the whole country is addicted to and all that kind of shit. So the pollution making those biopharmaceuticals is intense, though. That's why there was also revolts in there's small islands out of Puerto Rico. One major one is Vieques, right? There was a whole movement to get the U.S. out of Vieques because they had polluted the whole island. That all the fishermen, they couldn't fish, couldn't do anything. You know what I mean? Yeah. A lot of these beaches, though, what they would do is they would switch. You can't swim here. You're not allowed to go here today. You go here and keep switching off because they would do bombing exercises and leave live plutonium and shells in it. So they would have to just like, you can't use that land no more. And we're talking about uranium that takes years and years to, you know what I'm saying? It's all radioactive, you know? This is the kind of stuff. And then they wonder why all these people come to the U.S.?
Yeah.
You know, so this is the kind of thing we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? These are all the kind of things we're talking about, you know? So when we look at things like that, we're trying to show people civilization. You know what I mean? Expose them to civilization, right? When we expose them to civilization, this is your introductory pedagogy. That's why you have to keep up on what is pedagogy. Why are people saying things? And listen, if you're going to teach people, you have to teach them the main way to think of things as an oppressed person. This is something I think when we talk about FBA, we talk about other people, why they're like so quick to diss every other original person. Oh, they're from Africa? I don't give a shit about them. They're from here? Oh, they need to get out because they're illegal, this and that. What they forget, right, is to have a suspension of belief in the oppressor. People forget that, you know? You see people claim things, I don't know if I believe that. You know what I mean? I don't think that's the right story because it's coming from them, you know? So, like, let's say, it doesn't matter what president is, Democrat, Republican, or something, they say something, we don't go, oh, yeah. No, we don't believe that shit.
Yeah.
We don't believe you. You have to show and prove. Now, these aren't new principles we're applying to them. These are principles we always have. We always do the knowledge, get the real facts before we what? We wisdom or we act on something. You know? It's the same thing. Or else we were believing a man's wisdom without doing the knowledge. Right? So these principles apply. So when we're teaching people, we're trying to open their mind and say, listen, there's a deeper world out there to look at these things. The thing is, how deep can we go with each person is why we do our best to try to find out what people are about. So as you get better with your introductory pedagogy, you're trying to shorten your language, say things quicker, say things easier, ask the right questions, right? You deal with people on the street, gauge how much time you have to show them what's up. You know what I'm saying? How much time you have building with this brother on the corner? Your time, because you might be having to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Maybe it's you that's like, yo, I need to get home. Because that happens to me all the time. Like, I need to get home.
Right.
But now I'm building with this brother.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I gotta gauge how I can give him something useful in my time, or maybe I'm asking him, talking to him. Maybe he seems like he wants to hear this longer version or the shorter version. What's his level of what's his level of understanding? Like, what can he? What do you think he can understand? You know what I mean? So how heavy am I going to speak to him? All that kind of shit. You know, like with kids. Listen, late '90s, 2000s, I could build a little deeper. People like deeper music. Lyrics was deeper. Everything. You get deep.
Yeah.
Nowadays, kids, man, they got jingles in their head.
Yeah.
That's it. There's jingles.
Yeah.
It's just hooks and jingles. For now, the song is the bars is a hook and the jingle is the chorus. It's not. There is no.
Basically, just getting hypnotized.
Yeah,
that's all it is. Pretty much.
The songs aren't really have topics. They don't really, have, except the general sex or violence topics. You know what I mean? Kids say, "Oh, the shit is tough." If it's just like really like, if they like drill, it's because they like violence. If they like something else, it's because they like sex music. You know, so it's really they're just urges being expressed musically. You know what I mean? But you have to gauge that. You know what I'm saying? You gauge where they're at. You know what I'm saying? Me in the advantage of the classroom, I have a little bit of a longer time where I could pull them up.
Mm-hmm.
You're here though, so you're in the classroom, so you're gonna learn, and I'm gonna pull you up the ladder with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna walk you up this thing. I'm gonna use a bigger word, but I'm gonna pull you up with it. And I'm gonna tell you what it means, and I'm gonna pull you up. And that's what the work we do. We're here for work. You know what I'm saying? So it's the different ciphers that you have. You know. Also notice that it goes a reverse way. You know what I'm saying? What are the levels of things that you're not exposed to that you want to expose yourself to? You know what I'm saying? So like I mentioned, like here, right? Most of the students most students have a poor knowledge of. They go like, "Oh, I know my Black history." Yo, that's not really true.
Right.
People have a poor knowledge of Black history, have a poor knowledge of New York history is really poor. So they're not going to get a context of like Nation of Islam and how the father came out of that and built this thing up in New York. You don't really know, can't really know what the father did in New York if you don't understand New York history. You know what I'm saying? And because it won't sound amazing. Just like, for example, because music, people hear Louis Armstrong, they're like, that shit sound mad old though. Mm-mm. It really be sounding like old, like it's old. Yeah. And you're like, yeah, trumpet is hot and everything like that. But then if you put it in the context, nobody played it that powerfully.
Right.
Like, no, and with such character, like, You know what I mean? Like the notes, like it's just riveting. Like
and like you said, since I'm in the music, I understand how that sound is being used so many different times.
Right,
now.
right.
Like,
and then
it changed over time.
So
but it
if
came
you
from
start
the
messing with the jazz, then you start listen. Now you know what? Now I could appreciate Freddie Hubbard because I can see what he's doing from Dizzy, what he's doing from here. Like you can see the progression, and now you're like, yo, now I know why he's like that GOAT right there, like that foundational GOAT. Then you can see like how Miles was unique in using his tones because he didn't have the power of those guys. But how he made such unique tones. It's like you got to see the whole spectrum. So like the pedagogy always starts with what you're going to be aware of. And notice that I'm talking about not just you teaching someone else, but you are teaching you. Listen, if you ask me for a book, you're already becoming your own teacher. Not because when I give you the book, I didn't decide the book. You asked me for a book. I said, here, take this book. But you decided, I need to learn about this subject here. So like when you go to the library and you fish through books, right? You're deciding what book to read. You're actually going, nah, this is baby shit. This is too easy for me. But I want that subject. I need it harder. Let's get more difficult. More difficult, this is good. So like in my collection, I got books that I'm like, nah, I ain't even there yet.
Right.
I got books I'm like, yo.
That's high, like I said,
yo,
that book,
yeah.
I'm like, I need to finish this first.
I don't even know this book. Like, and that's how I always tell people, that's how the story how I bought it. Because the God Save Your Understanding, when he used Save Your Knowledge, he used to be here, right? He really taught me pedagogy. You know what I mean? He really taught me. He taught me to give everybody As a Man Thinketh this is the first book. A lot of shit, right? And he wouldn't let me buy certain books. He said they were too easy. But he wouldn't let me buy the Pale Fox because it was too hard. Pale Fox was about these two. It's a book from these two French sociologists that spent time with the doggone people of Mali. And these guys are astronomers, but they have no astrological equipment. So how the fuck do they know about all these things?
That kind of reminds me of Freedom, because sometimes I asked him something, and he said, you trying to learn multiplication about the addition.
Right.
So I'm like,
but here's how I got the book. I never was allowed to buy the Pale Fox from Savior, right? Well, one day I bought a lot. He knew I was advanced. I was getting ready to teach here, right? But that still wasn't kind of getting me. I said, listen, Savior, shouldn't the person's library have what is easy for them that they surpass for the children, the next generation, right? That's how you get it, because I got to talk about the children first. Get there, the books that we're ready for that we got to read. But then I need those books that like for the future, that I'm gonna get to, just have them in there as motivation. The next level, the next class. He's like, he gave me a, but then he let me buy it.
Yeah.
A lot of that's also because I bought nearly everything else. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is you're being a teacher when you're being a teacher when you pick that book, a student when you start reading and educating yourself with it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna get through these comments on the board, but as part of the introductory pedagogy, when I have someone in the cipher like you, there's always three things I always tell them. And as part of my introductory pedagogy, three things that I tell them that if they don't come, or I don't see them for a long time, or they don't come anymore, they always will need to do. The first is always be gauging who it is that's teaching you. In other words, you are learning from everything around you. Now, are you deciding who it is that teaches you? From the individuals, the videos, the things that you put the most focus into. You know what I'm saying? Who are you letting teach you? You know what I'm saying? You want and this helps because if you want to learn about ancient civilizations, you can watch you'll find some Sertima, Iron Van Sertima lectures on it, YouTube, and it's good. But deep down, to really get the knowledge of that particular subject, you're gonna have to read books that he wrote, not just the lectures. You're gonna need the deep shit. You're gonna have to read the books. So now you're figuring out what it is that teaches you. Books, lecture, individuals, right? Or what have you, right? You're learning martial arts though. It didn't work for Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio, when he was using the video or the book. It ain't gonna work for you. You gotta find an individual eventually down the line. You can't just do YouTube.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like you're gonna need somebody to throw something at you, right? You need to see what that feels like, and you need to get punched a little bit. maybe not crazy, but a little bit.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
You take that punch and you be like, I'm done. I don't want no more.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
You
Like you need to know. You need to know what it feels. You know what I mean? And so that's the first thing, right? So you're always gauging how you learn is the point of that first one, right? Learning how you learn, learning to learn, right? Who it is that teaches you how it is that you learn. Because knowing how best you learn, you also learn how best you're fooled. You know what I'm saying? Um, I love music my whole life, and half of my life, over half my life is about writing about music and making music now, right? So it's a lot of music. I can also be fooled by music. You know what I mean? Because if she's fine and she sings, I'm in trouble. I'm already in trouble. You know what I'm saying? You know? So don't get like no Cleo Soul or something like that telling me something because I'm done. Right? The combo's too much, right? So the thing is, you got to know your weaknesses and what you're inclined to too much. This helps too when you're reading books. Am I reading too much of one type of book? Too much of this subject, that subject, right? All that. The second thing is this: always be making your next question. And that's why I like, if you notice, I did this with you. I do this with anyone I meet. You always want to have them making more and more questions, right? The question is what counts. So if you could put into words your very next question, that's the next thing you don't know. Always be trying to put into question form the next thing that you don't know. And say, well, Sunias, there are things that we don't know that we don't even know to put a question for. And I say, yes, that's always the case.
Yeah.
But that's not your next question.
Right.
Your next question is what you can articulate. You know what I'm saying? So I give you the supreme math. You're like, you should be going through and going, now, why does 4 have to be culture?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why does it have to be that way?
That's
Because we gave it to you like that don't mean that it's got to be like that. So I'm saying you got to make a question or you start to ponder that.
That's where Freedom said the multiplication. You trying to learn multiplication for addition because I asked him why does zigzag zig is wisdom understanding. So he said you trying to learn multiplication without the addition. He broke it down lightly, but he's like still.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
But if you have more of a mastery of supreme math,
right. That's what he's telling me.
It'll start to make sense.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. But it's a good question. But you see, like when we develop our questions, now we could prove them. You know what I'm saying? It's not lost the question. Mm-hmm. It might still come up.
Right.
You know? So the thing is, the second thing is always be wording your next question. Always try to articulate your next question. You know what I'm saying? So as a student, you should be working in such a way where you're developing questions for the next time we build. You know? Just like when I used to learn martial arts, so I had my C-gun. A lot of people don't know this though. Our C-gun, a lot of us who got C-gun Bobby Lee Whitaker, he's a black man. He wasn't Asian.
Is that the first martial the introduced martial arts?
No, not in this nation. No, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. In our nation. You know what I mean? And Bobby wasn't a 5%. He's like an honorary 5%, but he's not a 5%. You know, but he taught almost all of us 5% of a certain era. You know, and we would just go. He would tell us watch movies, just to open up the creativity. I would go see him and I would do some crazy shit, do it all wrong. He goes, "Now let me show you." You know what I'm saying? Let me show you. And it would help him have us move more. Having us do that had us move more. The more that we move, the more he sees our nuances of body language. And the more that he can see, okay, you'll learn doing this, you'll learn doing that. He's a real master at that. You know what I'm saying? That's what made him such a great educator, grandmaster. And so when we look at things like that, right, this is what you're really trying to do when you develop your next question. You group them, the most important ones first, the ones that are most needy. You'll be able to gauge them after a while, right? Now, the third and last thing, though, is really about belief, right? I always tell students, bathe yourself with belief daily, okay? There is something that you are dealing with based on belief that is most glaring right now. The most glaring thing that you are doing based on belief, find it. Every single moment you can, find it, get rid of it by learning about it. Bathe yourself in belief. Belief is something like dirt. We bathe every day. We're not European, so we bathe regularly. You know what I mean? We bathe regularly and we find a thing. Like, for example, the early student, right? First time I'm building with you, right? We get rid of all pork. We don't eat the pork, right? We find out where the pork is, right? Not just the actual meat, but the products, right? You know what I mean? The glycerin, right? The Wonder Breads with all that. You know, nobody should be eating white bread, but,
Capsules,
right? Gelatin capsules, shit like that, right? But then we take it further, right? Now that you're on that path, you're already on that already. Take it a little step further, though. You know what I'm saying? Find out, well, I'm eating all these foods, but when you look at a plate, you should be able to tell, listen, there's my complex carbohydrates, there's my proteins, there's my fats. You know what I'm saying? This is probably the worst part of my diet right there. Like, you should know these things.
Right.
Most people don't know these things.
Right.
Because at least, so, let's say you said something that's not so good. You know, be having a candy. I don't eat candy, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't candy. I have some candy sometimes, you know? So now you know, like, if things go awry and you're feeling not down, get rid of that first, man. Detox from that first. Let go of that. You know what I'm saying? You learn about the vegan diets, the living food diet, which I teach as well. And say, listen, I don't want to be vegan. I don't know about that. But when I get in trouble, I'm a detox and go like that for a while. At least use the diet for my own gain. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I said, bathe yourself with belief. Again, those three things are overtly my introductory pedagogy. Okay? That's my introductory pedagogy, you know? Those three things. And I wanted to make that a particular thing. And since you were here, that's why I put that in there. Today's math, though, and today's alphabets, I see as linked to what I call the state of creation. So it's a brief build, but it's very thought provoking. You know what I'm saying? I consider wisdom culture, all being born in equality, the state of the creator creating creation. Here's what I mean, right? The way of our culture, wisdom is the way, right? The nature of using knowledge. Wisdom is using knowledge. The way of our culture is to use the knowledge to what? To create a life, a reality. So all creation is based on the use of our culture. So the main using of our culture is a way of life that creates. When you're born, those 2 and 4, you get 6. Wisdom culture. Today's math, 24th, borns equality. That equality is the state of creation. The balance, the proper position to then what be what? What's after 6?
God.
7, right? God, right? To be us, to just become us, to realize us, because you don't become again and again. You realize, you reaffirm, right? To me, the way I see it, that wisdom culture is the state of creating. To more emphasize that, the 24th letter in the alphabet is X, the unknown. The state of creation is unknown. What do you mean? When I create something, it wasn't there before. So I am comfortable in the state of the unknown to bring out the known. So when somebody's creating, that's why if you look at the history of creatives, right? Musicians, all that, they have to get into a zone. It's a scary place to be, the unknown. I don't know if I can make that Cupid links again, Cupid links 2, etc. Right? I don't know if I could make that out. Right? Ralph Ellison never wrote a complete follow-up novel to Invisible Man. I don't know if you ever read Invisible Man. Great novel. You know, see, I was talking about novels. That's a great one, though. Okay. You know what I mean? And Invisible Man was, to just give you an idea, it doesn't tell you anything about the story. Invisible Man was literally a metaphor for like the black man. He's invisible.
Right. Okay.
He doesn't seem to get what he deserves. Nothing. He's invisible. You know, and that's how poignant the thing was. And Ralph Ellison was a great writer. He actually wrote jazz writings too that were very good. You know, it's that I don't think they had a lot of longevity because he was writing on the vantage point whereby the time Miles Davis was kicking, Miles Davis was like, oh, those new guys, they perform with their back to the stage and they don't smile. You know what I mean? He's old school. So like that was like, you know, and it was like, you know, even when I read it, I was like, because Miles is my guy. That's how I got into jazz. Okay. So I was like, you know what I mean? Like, you old man. Like, it was like, but the thing was, he was very insightful about the the jazz in general. He's the one that said jazz was like other people have, but he really detailed it great when he said that jazz was like he mirrored it like hip hop, even though he didn't know anything about hip hop, right? He wasn't around. Wasn't writing then. Um, but he said that when you play an instrument, that's just learning the instrument, like a trumpet. But when you learn yourself and you play that trumpet in a unique way that expresses you, where no one else can say that that's him playing it. Let's say like a, you know, that's a Miles, that's a Dizzy, that's right? That's a Donald Byrd. You know what I mean? Then that was truly what jazz was about.
Just because you can play the instrument,
played it right. The way you uniquely played it was the key.
Because you can't play it like him.
Right. Because we hear Miles. Miles doesn't play at all like this. You know what I'm saying? And no one plays like Louis, though they do things like Louis because he's the standard bearer, right? Peace, God, right? Peace, God. And so the thing is like that these are the great writings that he had. So even though I got the best part, right? Mm-hmm. Even though I was like, I don't like the way he says about Miles and stuff, I took some shit out of it because he's a great writer, But even he couldn't get his second novel out. I don't know what the problem was. People speculate. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, it's always difficult to get out of the unknown. So that's why I say, listen, the state of being in the unknown is where we belong. People are like, oh, I don't know why I'm born in this world. There's so much hell and stuff. Yo, we're the ones to fix this. This is why we're here, because we're the ones equipped to do this stuff. You know what I'm saying? If we took Imhotep and made all the pyramids and stuff like that, we put him here, he would not survive. Right. Just like we would get lazy and get fat if we was out there and we're like, wait, Imhotep, there's no devils here? Like we're the era where there's no devils? We'll be done fast. We just got pyramids. No, we would be fat. We wouldn't be doing nothing. We would be like, now what's the point of research? And you don't even know where I came from. We'd be like, you don't even know what I went through, right? So we're not equipped for that. We ain't here. We're in this hell right here, right? And look at your hells like the work. There is no hell. There's the work to get more right? Like the 12th letter in the alphabet. Love, hella right. Knowledge, the work, the wisdom to get the understanding. So again, take a thought about that. Think about that. The X, the unknown, that is the state of creation. We should always be living in a way where our wisdom is steeped in the culture of creating, letting our ideas flow, putting ourselves in positions to learn more ideas. This is the whole thing. So, I hope that makes sense. So that's what I wanted to share today. It's a little shorter class online, but I wanted to give you the heavy stuff. So that's the heavy stuff. All right. The writing plus lesson, I'm almost finished. I'm still working on the other plus lessons, so I'm trying to work as fast as I can. This week I'll have a lot of work together. This week I have my daughter, so I was telling God we're going to City Field on Saturday to watch Blackpink, so we're gonna have some fun. You know what I'm saying? She's gonna yell. Blackpink has a couple of curses and stuff in their music. I'm giving her full carte blanche.
Is it in English?
They sing in English and Korean. Yeah.
Okay.
They got a couple of, they like to rhyme bars like braggadocio bars. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So they got a couple of shits and maybe a fucking and stuff like that. So I'm telling my little one, yo, I'm gonna allow you just for this concert. You can do all the lyrics. You know what I'm saying? So she's hyped though.
It's funny because we were at the radio station yesterday with Gorilla Mims.
Yeah.
He had a part in his show and he said if there's any kids out there that just want to get a cuss word off, call in. But of course the parents call in and then they'll kind of be like, hey, and then you can hear the mom or dad like, go ahead, say it. And then they'll say the cuss word.
Yeah. It was hilarious. Yo, it'd be like that, yeah. But I just wanted to have a good time with that because this is the first actual concert that This is the first actual concert. Thank you. This is the first actual concert I'm taking her to. You know what I'm saying? And it happens to be this one. But let me see the one that's okay. Okay, I see the understanding. Okay. I see that, Charles Black. I see that. Let's see. Indeed. Indeed. I like that acronym. Followers believe anything. That's a good one. You know. But again, everybody, peace to everybody here. My brother King Kamal, Charles Black, Smells. Um, yeah, everybody. Self elevation, right? Right, kids. I see you there. You know what I mean? I'm gonna let everybody go. Clemente. If I didn't email you the plus lessons, let me know. Anything you want, books. Let me know what you need. If you have no reading material, that's no good. That's unacceptable. So let me know. I get to you. You know what I'm saying? Um, but we're done for today. I think I gave you about a 40-minute clip here. All right. So until next week, contact me. All right. Peace.